with me are my fellow committee members, Ms. Monta and Councilman Hendricks, and also the mayor is here, and everybody else needs to be here from the administration. So, saying that, this meeting, what we're going to do today is because there is a meeting scheduled at 7 o'clock for the zoning board, zoning hearing board meeting. We are going to do as much as we can. We're going to postpone the 5-year plan. You should have copies of the, I know it's in the website, and I think there's some in the back, okay? So please study them, and then we will discuss them along, hopefully with the monthly financial that is due tomorrow, so we don't have the financial report today. So we will discuss the financial report and the 5-year plan at the same time, hopefully. So review them, and I know that some of you have questions, so I talked to some of you already, and I know you have questions on the 5-year plan. So we're discussing them so we can allow the scheduled meeting for the zoning hearing board that they have usually every Monday at 7 o'clock. So we're going to try to get as much as we can. We have 4 bills that we're going to discuss tonight, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Mr. Hanlon, will you please read Bill 18?
Okay, Bill 18 amends the 2018 solid waste fund budget by transferring $137,700 from the unappropriated balance to cover unbudgeted expenses. In 2018, the funds are available due to unexpended receipt of funds from the Allentown Parking Authority for street cleaning services.
Okay, thank you. This bill obviously has to do with money that we're getting, and it's going to be going to solid waste. And Mr. Herschel, will you please tell us a little bit more about that bill? Where's the money? Why are we getting it? Why we have to pay it? And where did it come from?
We have received more than was anticipated for street sweeping activities from the parking authority, and so that revenue is coming in the door. Actually, it's already here, and so we are going to take that revenue and appropriate it for additional solid waste needs during the course of the year.
Okay, so is there any comments from my colleagues in the dais? Okay, so this money is coming. My other comment is the money is coming. It's
here, as I understand it.
It's already here.
We already have it. Yes.
Okay, good. And it's going to be used because we are short of money from the solid waste.
I don't know what the short of money is. I think we just happen to have more availability, and we can do some more with what we're capable of doing with solid waste management this year.
Okay. So do we have any plans of what we're going to do with that?
I expect that they do, and I don't know if anyone from Public Works or Recycling is here, but my anticipation would be yes, that they've got plans for it.
Okay, so we're just going to transfer it into the solid waste.
Yes, sir.
And then we figure out, you bring it, whomever from the solid waste will bring it to us if they're going to tell us what they're going to do with the money. Okay.
And that would be perfectly, I think, appropriate. Yes.
Okay. Any further comments from anybody in the administration? If not, comments from the public, please. Mr. Hirschman. I know you have a lot of questions.
I never do.
Right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. My first question for you is, I've been writing memos to you guys on the solid waste money for collection of fines, and this is the first time I saw something like this. And it's late by a year. So in other words, we have 3 more quarters coming to us, Mr. Herschel? My concern is, are we getting the money that's due us? In other words, we have labor costs, we have gas costs, we have all kind of costs. And we don't know the parking authority is fully reimbursing us the way they're supposed to with the fines. And this is unusual to read that they're giving us money now. Is this the first or?
No, we always get money from the parking authority, but in regards to this particular issue, you may want to explain.
This is an unusual receipt dealing with street sweeping that we do, and so I mean, this will, if this sort of thing happens, it's not a regular sort of thing. So we just happen to be able to get a cash receipt from them in this particular instance. This could always happen again down the road, but this is not something that's tied to the annual allocation that they try to provide to the city for general support for city purposes. If we get another one like this in the future, we'll gladly take the money and learn and allocate it if we need to for appropriate expenses.
Mr. Greedy, that's what I've been saying. I sent memos to City Council, bringing to your attention into the mayor's office, and we have expenses related to issuing these tickets, and we have money, we buy the street sweepers, we pay for that, we pay for the gasoline, we pay for everything. And I'm saying we should get fully reimbursed. Here now, Ms. Hart said, well, we get money sometimes. So in other words, the next 3 quarters, we have to eat. We're gonna eat it.
Well, this is only
Is it
one.
not fair to us taxpayers, Mr. Greedy?
I agree with you. I think we should get more money.
Well,
But
then,
the issue-
why aren't we doing it? Why aren't we pursuing it then?
Well, this is part of it, I think. I think in the future, we're gonna look more into it. That's my understanding of it. But as an authority, as you know, we always get a certain amount of money from the parking authority for capital projects usually.
Well, the law reads, I don't have the law in front of me, I sent it with the memo when I did the memo. They have to reimburse us for our expenses, and they're not. Mr. Harkless submitted it. I mean, we can't outrun government like this. That's the authority run government. This is what's happening. And then my next question.
Okay, sorry, let me just go back to what you're saying, Lou, because I think you own something here that I agree with. So I think you're saying we want to make sure that there is money coming for certain expenses that we have.
That's correct.
And it's
That's what I'm looking for.
it's in a periodic time throughout the year, perhaps.
Those street sweepers cost a lot of money.
Yes.
That's my next question. Do we have a contract with this recycler that we gotta pay them an X number of dollars when we don't have enough recyclables? It says we're gonna pay the recyclable $53,570 because we didn't put enough recyclables into the system for the. Is that in the contract, or we gotta reimburse the recycler? It's on page 2 in the middle.
No, I'm looking at, because I got 2 different sections.
It's in the Allentown Budget and Finance. It's
Yeah,
on the
okay,
third
yeah.
paragraph down.
I got it. So, what is your question, Lou?
Do we, in other words, what's happening is we're not putting enough recyclable to the recycler. So now we gotta reimburse him, because he didn't give us enough, now we gotta pay him, because he didn't give us enough, we don't have enough recyclables. Is a contract that we have to follow now from now on. Since I read in the Wall Street Journal today,
Yeah.
I just brought the article, that there's a problem there. There are not many recyclables, because China doesn't want to take the recyclables that are piling up. And recyclers, or what do you call these guys, don't want to take the recyclables. Now we're in trouble, are we not?
Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's what I was going to say. I read that, I heard about that as of the beginning of 2018, that the government of China was no longer taking U.S. recyclables, generally speaking, as part of their purchases. And having a country of close to 1.5 billion people who's deciding they're not going to take recyclable material from the United States any longer, that's a pretty big hit to demand, definitely.
My final question, Mr. Reedy, can you tell me how long we're going to be on the hook? We're not putting enough recyclables into the system.
How long are we gonna be on the hook?
Yeah, well, how long we're going to hold this recycler for money? We don't put enough money into the system.
I don't know, something that we can certainly try to find out.
Good idea.
You know, that they're not taking as much recyclable as we were. We were pretty like number 1 in recycling and one of the best in the nation.
It's not so much the issue of what people are doing to act on it. People are acting on it very well and continuing to recycle material. We just suddenly have a sharply reduced demand for recyclable material because of apparently what the Chinese have done. I will defer to solid waste and the recycling people for more details as to what this is going on next. Now
So
getting into their
you don't think it has anything to do with a single stream versus double stream that we had before?
No.
Okay.
So, Mr. Greer, you're going to find out a few things for us then, before the taxpayers. You're going to find out why we're not getting reimbursed, and you're going to find out why we're going to get penalized for not putting enough recyclables into the stream, right? You can have answers for us to be provided.
We can get you answer, yes. Mr. Hendricks had a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Greedy. One of my concerns too maybe, and this would be a question better answered by Ann Sauerman, would be, are we getting less recyclables? One thing I've noticed is I see a lot of trucks, renegade trucks going around on recycling night, pilfering those items, metal items that are put out for the city. And I think that may be part of the problem. So my question for her would be, what's the volume like? Are we on par with last year, the year before, or are we less than what we've been getting? Again, I don't expect answers from you, but certainly something to look at. And maybe what we need to do is be more enforcement against those.
Okay.
That may be part of the answer, but we'll find out Wednesday night, hopefully.
So will you get, Ms. Sauerman, will you make sure that we get some response by the meeting, next meeting?
We'll certainly make them aware of what we've talked about tonight so that they are prepared for it.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Hunsaker.
Glenn Hunsaker, South Allentown. Follow up on Louis' question here. Do we have a number what we're going to be losing this year because of the reduced, what I'm talking about, the reduced recycling cost? Maybe she can make a report and could make a report to the council, really what our projections are for the rest of the year and how it's going to affect the budget.
That's a good idea.
So we could get a handle on that. Going into the previous article about the solid waste from the parking authorities money that they were going to get. Let me back up there a little bit. What was in the budget that the parking authority was going to give us this year in the budget? That money hasn't been received. You've been giving it the first month of January.
Correct.
What did they project, or you project in the budget?
The last what we projected in the budget that we were going to get was significantly different and a lot greater than what we're actually going to get out of it. But the big impact on that is a result of that parking revenues, both on-street and off-street, really did not come in nearly as expected in 2017.
Okay.
And that's the big issue. And basically, if those numbers don't meet their revenue estimates, with the other expenses and the debt service issues that they've got to take care of, it will be the distribution to the city that takes the big hit.
Okay, what's the number, Brent? You must know the number. I mean, you should have that off the top.
Yes, we appropriated or we budgeted $750,000
Okay.
for revenue for the year. What I am anticipating coming in from the general distribution, I remember having that discussion with the parking authority a couple months ago, was going to be less than $200,000. Now, obviously, we're hoping that we will have a much better part of the year coming ahead, that we get much better ticket revenue, but it is what it is.
Okay, I'm just trying to put a handle around this. The general distribution is what we were talking about, that money that we would normally receive during the budget time.
Yeah,
that's
that's the big
these other
difference.
100-some thousand or whatever is some kind of a.
That is correct.
Are they under the understanding if they pay that extra, they don't have to give the general?
No, there's no such understanding.
Okay. We should get a report from them too, the parking authority or somebody, or the two council people that, I don't know who's on it anymore.
It's Alpha and Mr. Hendricks.
If we start to work on that early, then, if we start to work on that early, that's gonna affect the budget, so we should have a better handle on our budget numbers, if we're gonna be down in all those areas. Okay?
Thank you. Mr. Hans.
Good evening, Tom Horn, 2016 East Highland Street. Did I understand there was an admittance by the finance department that raising the parking meters to increase the budget did not work? Did I get that right from him, and saying that the revenue is lost because the people aren't coming downtown and not parking? Did I understand that right?
I don't think you said it quite that way, but.
Well, my ears are always different.
But But I know where you're coming from.
Yes, the revenue that had been anticipated in the parking, from the parking authority to come in both for on-street and off-street parking did not come in 2017 to the extent that it had been projected to do so. And so because of that, the place that takes the biggest hit from that is the city, because there are the expenses that the parking authority still has and the debt service they have to take care of doesn't change. So if there's less revenue coming in, the distribution to the city is going to go down pretty much accordingly.
Does that mean that we should reverse that procedure so the money comes in like it did the year before they raised the parking? That would mean that the revenue wouldn't be a loss, that would be an income. So apparently we need an ordinance to change the cost of parking in Allentown so that people come in and spend money at stores or wherever else they be and not make it a burden, and then the revenue would be coming in.
Well, you know, there's one thing that happened. First of all, we lowered the timing last year, remember that? In fact, I introduced that to lower time, because we had the 5 to 9 o'clock, okay, in the business district area, and throughout the city, actually. So we lowered that. The other thing that happened is that if you park in the garage, you get a half hour free, any garage in the city. You don't have to pay for a half hour. So that's another issue. And we built more garages, so people probably park in the garage, but not parking on the streets as much.
Well, we also had the lack of control at some of the parking garages because there wasn't a camera and an electronic check on how many people went in, how many go out. Has that been solved?
I'm not sure. Do you know anything, Mr. Hunt?
I do not.
Well,
I know there was a problem.
no, but what I'm saying, now it's a whole year loss of revenue, and the minute we get a little money, we have to spend it. I don't understand this spend, when we have bills to pay, we have bonds to turn down, and we're still transferring money. We have the computer issue going on. We're loaning money from our own funds. I should have my garbage collected for free for a year. I mean, in reality, we're loaning money, and before you know it, they're talking about sweeping. Well, is sweeping snow the same as sweeping leaves? I mean, when we have these crises and the money, why can't it just be set there collecting interest? Was one of the programs that we were going to have, or we're going to hire a guy to put $2 million in and pay him $1 million and we get $1 million. I mean, all that dumb stuff that's talked about, it's not working. I don't even want to mention the water and sewer agreement that isn't working.
We talked about that on Thursday.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I mean, these plans and these ideas that we had, it's not working. We're going to have to, I mean, in the book it says, oh, the only way we're going to do it if we get rid of personnel. Well, that means we don't hire anybody. If we have to get rid of them to work on the budget that's on the last page, then why start hiring anybody and then take the vacancy money and start using it to pay down our debt? I mean, this going around circle, transfer this, transfer that, the sausage fund, because we're not allowed to say the Madoff report. I mean, that's what they're doing. I just think that we gotta hold the line.
Well, we're getting that money, Mr. Hahn. If we're getting money from the parking authority, it's good to put it to use.
Yeah, but you know, it would also be nice if we put $1 million in the bank and got 2% interest.
Well, they're not gonna give us money, so we can put it in the bank, I'm sure of that.
There's a joke going around here that if you put it in Pottsville, you get more money, like the mayor from Harrisburg did. So we're still working. No, I said it was a joke. Come on.
I understand.
But I'm saying,
Believe me, I understand what you're saying, you know, but at the same time, we have a lot of issues to take care of in the city.
one of the reasons that we were asking for the 5-year plan going back, so we can match it to something. We wanted to see, well, what happened to year 4? What happened to year 3? Well, you don't have that. We have the new 5-year plan up to 22, but we can't compare how we got in this predicament. And the simple question of the bank accounts, we're still searching so that we can do the research to bring it out and give it to Glacier to verify our findings so that we would have.
It isn't working appropriately, but Mr. Hahn is well over 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, yeah.
Well, no, this is not about time, it's about an open discussion.
I know, but we gotta leave it, because we got another meeting at 7 o'clock, and we have to make sure that we go through the other 3 other, bills. I thought that you were timing him.
It's not working.
Can you make sure that you let me know, like, let me see, get through my.
Oh, the timer's here, it's just not making any sound. I'll let you.
Oh, okay, yes, please, all right, thank you. All right, let's, vote on this one, anybody else for comments? If not, let's, move this, either way to, city council, entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to move this to the full council for an affirmative vote.
Favorably? Favorably?
Favorably, yes.
I second that motion.
All in favor, by saying aye?
Aye.
Motion moves forward. Okay, thank you. All right, Bill 19, Mr. Hammond.
Bill 19 amends the capital fund budget by transferring $50,080 and 41 cents within capital project 1805 emergency water repairs, and transferring $119,429 and 99 cents from capital project 1743 mechanical renovations wastewater plant, $663,000 from capital project 1806 emergency sewer repairs to capital project 1805 emergency water repairs to reimburse the Lehigh County Authority a total of $286,173.40 for work they have already completed.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Okay, Mr. Hudson, will you be speaking, or?
I will introduce this, and I suspect Ms. McKenna will probably be better able to handle the technical questions that come from this. But as she mentioned a little while ago, this is dealing with uncompleted work that was in existence or projects that were being worked on at the time that the water sewer lease, concession lease, was implemented in 2013. As the requirement for those particular projects is that there are some expenditures that the city is still responsible for directly, and this was dealing with one of those projects that we are bringing to completion.
Okay, great, thank you. Ms. McKenna, will you give us some information on that?
I'll be happy to. This Bill 19 is in regards to a project called Inoperable Valves. It is a requirement in the lease that it be taken care of. It's also a requirement in the lease that the city pay for it. We asked LCA to complete the project for us, and this piece of legislation reconciles 2 bills that have come in to us this year.
Just a quick question on that, inoperable valves. Is that session is completed now with this money, or are they coming back to us with additional requests for the same project?
This project is nearly complete physically, but no, the money is not yet settled. The compliance office negotiated with LCA to limit their expenses to us to $370,000 per year. The total project budget is approximately $1.2 million. To date, and I apologize, I meant to bring this with me, I think that they billed us approximately $600,000.
Oh, so this is not the first one, they already built those
They
before?
were already built, so
Okay.
yes, sir. And they have more that they should be billing us. This summer, as example, we allowed them to take on 2 more valves this summer to be completed. We also said to them, actually, that they didn't have to do this project. It was at their discretion. Some of the valves are stuck open, if you will, and that could be okay. But they opted to really work on this project and make the expense and take care of 98% of them. The ones that are remaining are smaller ones, and they may make the decision to just leave them be unless it's necessary. But meanwhile, for your purposes tonight, we needed to do some rearranging of some of the budget monies and to get them into accounts so that we could pay bills. This is money that the city had put away already, that we're taking it from some of the capital programming the city has been doing for years for some of these items.
Actually, so the money has been put aside for that,
Yes,
and then, but it was in different accounts.
It was in different accounts, and finance, and I required it to be put in certain standard accounts, of course, and so this legislation is to satisfy that requirement.
Okay.
For the sake of transparency, so that you all know where it's coming out of and for what purpose.
Okay. So these accounts that are in the bill are the accounts that they were in and where we're going to be transferring from, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we are on the same page. All right, any comments from my colleagues and vice?
I have a comment, Reed, if you would.
Sure.
If I heard you correctly, you said this is something that LCA decided to do even though it wasn't necessary?
That's, they didn't necessarily have to do all of them. The city did them when they became an issue. It would be probably a management function, a decision to make. What they were able to do by doing them all at once is get an economy of scale for this project. So over the long haul, it was probably less expensive to do it this way. They got it in and out and completed it.
Okay.
To 98%.
So then you have to do it now, all at once, but then eventually you have to redo it.
Say again?
They didn't have to do it now, but they will eventually have to do it, that's what you're saying.
They probably would eventually have to do them, and what happens if it's stuck? If a valve is stuck, and if it's stuck in a position that you don't want, then it can cause havoc to the surrounding businesses and residents. So, but some of them are stuck open, which is kind of okay, unless you have to shut it off. Then if that happens, you have to bring in extra equipment, and that particular incident could become quite expensive. So you can see it's probably a penny-wise, a dollar-wise operation to go ahead and do it now, to take care of the ones. The ones that they didn't complete are very small, and they'll probably be able to take care of them when they do some of the other projects they do for us in the underground infrastructure, like the water main replacement. They might, at that time, pick up a valve that happens to be within those that height structure.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Quick question. So are these throughout the city, or is that in the plant? Where is it? I mean,
Throughout the city.
Throughout the city, right?
Locations everywhere.
Okay.
Probably down your street.
Okay.
So how is that affecting us once again? If they're doing it all at once, that means that they're paying more?
Well, what happened was, is LCA proposed to us that they would take on this project earlier on, and we asked them, we said, if you want to, you can, but we wanted to limit how much they could charge us per year. We were able to successfully get an agreement from them to only bill us $370,000. What that means to us is that even now that they've completed some of this work, if there's work left from last summer for which they have not yet billed us, they can only bill us $370,000 a year. So if they won't finish billing us for the work they've already done, next year they'll have to bill us for work they need to do, they've already done in the following year until they reach the project total, which is about 1.2.
So we're paying less overall than we would otherwise done if we had stretched this out, but because of that, the timing of it, we're paying it immediately.
Okay, I understand.
Thank you. Mr. Hunziker.
Okay, Glenn Hunziker. How many valves, have we identified all the valves that are stuck and they want to do on this project?
Yes, sir.
How many are there?
I want to say 55.
55
Between
now?
55 and 58, sir.
And how many did we do so far?
49.
49?
I think so. I can provide that to you specifically.
And the cost of this is for how many valves roughly? I mean, this payment we're going to be,
This payment is, that's hard for me to say because this was They hired a contractor to do some of the work, so this is engineering and construction that they probably billed ahead. I can pull the actual invoice to tell you what it was.
Okay. Who in the compliance group is working and trying to set up which valves meet the criteria to be replaced? Is that?
We did that prior, sir. It's in one of the MOUs, the uncompleted work MOU, which is on the city's website.
Right.
It's an agreement that was made. In that agreement, along with other items, is a complete listing of each valve.
Who identified that? Was it with Dan Copley? Is that,
Oh, no,
is that
was-
the technical expertise you use? How do we?
No, that was identified prior to the lease, so just an ongoing maintenance document that the city was using for unoperable valves.
So but this was on a list somewhere else?
It was on the list, yes, sir.
Something prior, so somebody did it, but we don't know who that is.
It was
Okay, and,
would have been Water Resources staff.
and you know, some of this stuff we talked about years ago, and you say this money's coming from some sources of bonds that were.
Yes, sir.
Do
There
you have
was,
a listing?
that was set aside for this type of work.
Do you have a listing of all those bonds where they're coming from? I mean, I don't need it right now. I don't want to take up this time because we want to go through some other stuff.
And the particular projects out of the capital plan are assigned, as we talked about, to particular bond issues, so yes.
I would like to get a listing of that somewhere for our records eventually. I mean, within the next 10 years. Okay, but no, we want to follow up on this, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Hansiker. Anybody else? Okay, all right. So this is a transfer. I'd like to entertain a motion on this, for this transfer of a total of 286,173 and 40 cents. 173 and 40 cents. Any motion, anybody? My colleagues?
I'll make a motion that's be forwarded to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, please reply by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries, thank you. All right, let's, look at Bill 20, please.
Bill 20 amends the grant fund budget by transferring $12,500 from the unappropriated balance to correct the appropriation of a RCAP grant for Sacred Heart Hospital.
Okay, so our cap grant is 12,500. I think that's a pass-through money. So, any comments from the dais? Something that we approved before to get the money. Now the money is here, so we're going to pass it through to the hospital. Now is it still called Sacred Heart anymore, or is it called St. Luke's now? Still the same? St. Luke's Sacred Heart. Okay. Any comments from the? You want to add anything?
No, I think you got it.
Okay. Any comment from the public? If not, let's entertain a motion to move this forward. Full council. Can I make a motion, Ms.
I would
Mulder?
like to make a motion to move this favorably in front of the full council.
Okay, Mr. Hendricks.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Okay, motion carried. Thanks. All right, Bill 21, Mr. Hart, Hellman.
Bill 21 amends the 2018 capital fund budget by transferring from capital project 1243, water system security upgrades, to capital project 1227, automatic meter reading, in the amount of $50,000 for the continuation of replacing water meters. The automatic meter reading project is one of the uncompleted projects under the water sewer lease agreement.
Okay, anybody from the dais? Mr. Hart?
I'm going to defer again to Ms. McKenna on the technical details of this one.
Ms. McKenna?
Yes, sir. This is another uncompleted works project. This is part of the concession lease agreement. This, as you know, the city had engaged in a large project for the water meters to exchange them. There were some left undone. We had a list, identified specific list of those that were undone. And we asked LCA to complete it. And we work with them on that project. They bill us for the work that they do, and then we pay it. This is another piece of legislation to tidy things up for the transfer of those. This is money that we had set aside for the project and within water resources.
Thank you. This has been going on for like 4 or 5 years already.
It has been, yes, sir.
And is this the last of them?
It's
or
not
do we not know?
actually, I'm sorry, I believe I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
And, yes, no, we've been talking about, there actually isn't a sunset on this project, but we'd like to create one. And we have agreed with LCA, or LCA has agreed to meet with us about this to kind of close it down and call it quits after a certain point. What's still remaining are, I want to say about 200 meters left to install, and also a data repository that the city is obligated to pay for and for them to install. That hasn't been completed yet. That would be part of our negotiations so that we could settle this. The valves that are still, to let you know, when you probably all experienced this, you went into your home and they replaced the meter, and 90% of them went swimmingly. There were some commercial ones that were finishing up to this summer, that will be done. We have vacant properties, and they'll get reconciled. They may be, the house may be torn down. We're gonna look at that aspect of it and see if it's still necessary to do. And then there's still some residential homes that we haven't been able to get into yet.
I can attest to that because in the south side, my house is one of them.
Oh.
And
And
I do
when
agree.
can you expect us to come in?
But it is true, there's something in the south side.
Yeah, there's some, not every meter was being replaced during this project. There were some that had been replaced about 9 years ago that were already radio read. So it's sort of a misnomer. Maybe you'll fall into that. But, you know, let me write this down and I'll take a look at where yours is and see if yours is one that was actually on the schedule to do with this project.
Please do so, thank you.
Any further comments from the guys? Any comment from the public? Please come up. Can you name and address, please?
Hi,
Okay.
I just wanted to ask her. a
Say your
question.
name and address, please.
Oh,
For the
Joey
record.
Allentown. When are they having that meeting for the water increase?
Is it okay, Mr. Drew?
Sure, go ahead.
The LC is holding a public meeting this Thursday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Lehigh County Government Center. That's the one at 7th and Hamilton on the southeast corner, 7 o'clock on Thursday night.
What floor?
The first floor, their meeting hall is, once you walk in the building, you'll go through security, and then you'll see everybody else there and direct you. If you want to register to speak, I understand that they have 12 registered speakers so far. We know a lot of people are going to show up. They've indicated that they will take the registered speakers first. There's a way to register on the website.
I don't go in the next.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
I'm not taking up your time.
Well,
No,
but I can help you.
Your time.
I can help you with that. If you want, I'll get your name and I'll register you. Would you like to speak, ma'am? Okay. I'll get to you before you leave tonight
Okay,
and ask you your name and I'll get you registered.
thank you, council and everybody.
Thank you for coming. Okay.
No.
Anybody else from the public? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion for this bill to City Council.
I'll make a motion that this be moved to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Now, this is, we have a little bit of time. No, we're gonna take more time than this, but, you wanted to talk about the capital funds. I have them here. Is that something that you were prepared to talk about?
I'm perfectly fine with doing that if you want to go ahead. The report that you have there is the end of the first quarter.
Did you make a look at April as well?
Capital. That was in the first quarter.
Yes, in the first
March 31st, yes. And since we didn't get that for the last committee meeting, we wanted to have it up here so we could at least show the most recent quarterly updates. We are working very closely with Zelenkowski Axelrod, our independent auditors, in going over some of the other issues on capital reconciliation, which we're moving along very quickly on, and so there will be some adjustments to that document, I suspect, in future quarters, but right now that's as clear an update as where we are on the projects through the end of March.
Is there anything that we should be pointing out? Have you found anything that we thought we were gonna do and save us money and we didn't do, came out under or over, or anything that you can tell us a little bit about?
Nothing that is specific up to this point, I don't think.
Okay, so everything is marching. These are the ones that already spent, were already done.
You have a combination in there of all of the projects that are considered active in the city right now are on there, and you see the amount that has been either spent or encumbered for that particular project, along with the balance that remains on it. There are, now the closed projects that we had on there a while back. Thanks, Mina.
I just got this, so.
Yeah, I understand, yes, exactly. The active projects are the ones on the first 4 pages. And so anything that we would consider to be active is tied to that. And then you can see in pages that follow it, the allocation by specific debt financing structure as to which of those projects are assigned to which particular loans, which has been of great interest to several of our folks in the audience. The capital projects that are in the process of being closed and reconciled begin on page 12.
Okay. Do the folks in the back, do you have these, do you have copies of the capital funds? Okay, so I know that you asked for it before, it's here, so please review them and let me know if you have any question on them, and so we can briefly discuss them, since we have a little bit of time. I just got it myself, so I don't, I'm just looking through them right now and see that I'm not sure, I don't know if you have any information, or anything that was already completed. I know a couple of years ago, you did find that there were some fundings left over, which was very good, and on projects that we completed and never really reconciled.
And that's the reconciliation for that. We're actually going through the final stages of that with Zelenkowski Axelrod as we speak. And there are going to be some adjustments that will need to be made as a result of that.
Zelenkowski Axelrod, the same one that is doing our
they are independent auditors for the CAFR, yes.
CAFR, yeah. Okay. So is this part of the
making sure the capital fund is in an appropriate state is part of the whole capital process, yes. So I mean, this report per se is not going to be replicated in the CAFR, but trying to get the capital fund appropriately audited, recognize where things are at is absolutely part of the CAFR
so
process.
They already started that should be in the middle of the
yes.
CAFR reports, right?
Yes, they're looking through this very intently.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Hunsaker.
Okay, that was one of my questions, is the CAF report is gonna report on this and to what depth. That's a crutch that we had for 5 years now talking with this, because to my thinking, this is where all the money has an evaporation factor. Usually goes from something to zero. And but we wanted the CAFR to include that, other than just a paragraph saying what started at the beginning of the year and what was there at the end of the year. It's important that we zero down on this. And while I'm doing this, I don't know if we're going to talk anymore after this, but I want to give you this article, that, if I may.
I'm quite familiar with it. Mr. Hirschman has already provided me by fax that copy, and probably with the same highlights too.
But you don't have to read it right now. You probably memorized it. But this is exactly what we're saying. These people do it. And there's another thing on this. Read this in your spare time or whenever.
Thank you.
What's important about this sheet is more than what they found. Because what they're saying, the bank accounts don't match up with the CAF report. And we've been saying that for a long time, we think, in my opinion. But there's what's also on this sheet is what I've been saying for a long time. Why does it take us till August to do this? In Philadelphia, it says here, the CAF report is done in February.
We do our reports by June 30th.
Wait a minute, you didn't hear me. The city of Philadelphia does their CAFR by February.
City of Philadelphia, we can change it if we want to, but that's when we do it.
No, they say you can't do it. Their computer is stuck.
Let me get it from him. Go ahead.
Philadelphia's fiscal year is different from ours. It runs July 1st to June 30th. So in February of 2018, when they finally released the fiscal year 2017 CAFR report for the fiscal year that ended June 2030, that was the 8th month, not the 2nd after the end of the fiscal year. Our fiscal year is the same as the calendar year, and we get ours done in June within the 6-month period allowed by state law.
But they did say here the date of the cutoff was December 31st. That's what they said in this article.
And they were late. They didn't get it done till February.
But they made the report in February.
Which they should have had it done in December because their fiscal year, Mr. Hunsaker, ends June 30th. Ours ends December 31st. Their fiscal year had already been over with 8 months at the time they sent the report.
We actually.
It doesn't take 6 months to do a CAF report. I mean, there's something wrong here.
No, it's not taking us 6 months.
I mean, if they were doing it 20 years ago with paper and pencil, okay.
But
It shouldn't take that long.
they come on, I mean,
You have to change, maybe you have to change the accounting procedure that at the end of the year, you cut everything off and everything gets pushed over to the new year in all these projects. And it's a case of how you manage your projects.
Yeah, well, maybe you're right, but let me just say that, as you know, we have the account receivable, account payable, and that goes until March, really, right?
In a modified accrual process, to be sure that we allocate the funds, both on the receivables and the payable sides, to the appropriate fiscal year, it takes a while to make sure we get that absolutely locked down correctly. It's not a delay tactic, it's to be sure that we're reporting it accurately.
Yeah. I mean, I know I belong to a lot of organizations, and everybody does the same way. I mean, I volunteer to tons of organizations. That's the way it is.
You even have to have your federal taxes done by April 15th.
That's right.
They don't do it.
That's right. April 15th, the year ends, and the fiscal, I mean, they run, the federal government runs in a different tax year, and they give us up to April 15th to get it done. So they give us 4 months.
It cuts us off on December 31st, and by April 15th, we have to make a report. Now, sure, our personal stuff isn't Donald Trump's.
Exactly.
But the thing is, Mr. Glazier, and I'm going over to where the reconciliation of these accounts, I don't know where we are right now, but we were 6 months behind in reconciliation.
I think it's about 4
Why
or
are we
5
6
months
months behind? Why is that? I mean, if he needs more help, then he should get more help.
I agree with you, Mr. Hunsaker. I know that they're always being, ever since before I came to City Council, they always been late 5 or 6 months. Always. They never had caught up.
Now,
I always ask the same question that you're asking now. I've been asking.
But you don't get the
forever.
answer.
Well, they say that
You have to get an answer.
they're always catching up.
If you're late, you're catching up, or you're not. Yeah, sure.
But I think, you know, on his behalf, I think he's a lot further up,
Well, he
caught
did-
up than everybody else.
He seemed to be making a headway, and all of a sudden it stopped at October or November of last year. Now, I don't know where he is right now, because they haven't heard a report from him.
I'm
But
not sure. I think it's
when
about.
we go to our Madoff report, page 1 Madoff, or page 2, I don't know if those accounts have to be reconciled before they go on there. In other words, those balances have to be reconciled before they get put on that sheet or not?
What you see on that sheet is the cash balances as opposed to the modified accruals. And the modified accrual process, which is required under the Governmental Accounting Standards Board for local governments, is the one that requires us to go through, and we should be more timely, I agree, of getting direct bank reconciliations done. We have completed through December. And that, but for the modified accrual process, that is a different way of reviewing it from what we show in the monthly financial reports, which is on a cash basis.
So right now, we only use cash and modified accrual, is that what we're saying? Or we use
We use cash as a way of showing cash flows coming in during the course of the year on the monthly financial reports. Modified accrual is required by the Government Accounting Standards Board for us to, as far as operating for local governments in the United States.
And you can identify all the other funds that you're using a modified accrual on.
Yeah, and everything else we're using cash. Because that's the standard practice for enterprise funds and special purpose funds is to use cash. But for the general administration fund, it's modified accrual.
So basically, the golf fund, the solid waste fund, you're saying you're using cash?
Yes, sir.
All the enterprise funds, we use cash?
Yes.
We only have two funds?
So we have a couple of them. We have,
The general practice outside of the general fund is to use a cash accounting basis, but for the general fund, it's modified accrual. That's the GASB standard.
okay. Yes, you answer. We keep working.
We have to get.
Well,
we have
why
to
don't you
get
revise
the
that?
bank statements and so we can,
Yeah.
I mean,
Revise that.
he doesn't wanna do it, I know he doesn't wanna do it, but that's the only way to be honest.
I agree with you.
And come back with
Listen,
cash.
listen, Mr. Hunter, that's why I wanted to bring that early intervention guy, so he can they can start helping us to do something like that.
But you're talking about the guy from Harrisburg.
Yes, I know I didn't make the best presentation that you wanted, but it's a way.
With all due respect,
I heard about it.
tell him to come back again and give us a dog and pony show with a PowerPoint
I
and
know
some
you want
solid
to
paper.
PowerPoint.
I mean, to me, what I got out of him coming, and I don't know the guy, but otherwise, we got out of him, or I did anyway, that he passes it on, I'll let you find a couple of accounting people, and we'll pay part of the bill. That's basically
He
it.
doesn't it doesn't sound like he does the report, it sounds like somebody else, the company does the report.
Correct, he goes out and he hires people, that's
Yes.
my understanding, maybe there's a different one.
I don't know, yeah. I mean, whatever we do.
We don't need a guy to tell us that, other than he helps pay the bill, that's what we need.
Well, exactly, that's one thing. That's one thing. The other thing was that he gave us a process, how the process worked. He didn't give us the full reports or the information. He just told us what we can expect.
Now, as far as the finance committee goes, and Mr. Reedy, you're the chairman, he did say one or two things. He did say that he made a report for the city in 2005 and 6, did he? And he also said in 2008 or 9 he made a report, 8.
And
Let's go look, dig those reports out, and let's see what he said.
we can do that, yeah.
We should.
Because I know that we used some of the recommendations that they made, we actually used.
Well, let's see if he did. If he brings them out, make them public, and we'll read them over and see if we're following any of them. Because maybe we're falling in the same trap.
Those reports were like, do you remember the dates?
Yeah, I think I put all that stuff on the website. but
Oh, it's on the website, I got it.
I'm aware of it, I'm aware of the recommendations.
Are those on the website? You're telling me, Mike? I gotta call you and get exactly, you're gonna lead me through that one, because the website is, you would not believe.
There's a lot of information there.
Yeah, I know, yeah, but okay,
Thank you, Mr. Hunziker.
he knows where we're going.
Anybody else on this? If not, I think we already getting people from the zoning board coming in. Anything else that you want to talk about, Mr.?
And the mayor and I are looking very forward to, at our next meeting, discussing the assumptions behind the 5-year plan, and we're very glad to have that out here for public consumption tonight.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Marshall. And we will look at it, read it through very well, and I recommend that Mr. Hunziker and Mr. Hirschman and Mr. Han look at it. So you get the 5-year report that you've been asking for a while is here. And I thank Mayor O'Connor and Finance Director Hansel for bringing it to us. Just so I can understand the capital section here. Let me look at page 5 of 16, okay? For example.
Yes.
So the encumbrance, so I'm looking all the way down the last number, last figure you see over there, 9,273,000. Okay?
Yes.
So is the 600, right above it, the 616,000, is that the amount that is encumbered?
Yes, it is. The $9,273,000, Mr. Garidi, is the sum total of the three numbers that are bold-faced numbers immediately above it that the arrows are pointing to.
Okay.
Of which we have 6.3 million expensed and another 616,000 encumbered, leaving an available balance on those projects of 2,335,000. You add those three up together, and you get the 9,273,000, and then you see from the adjusted appropriations by ordinance from previous years, and you get back to the basis of where the debt funding started for 2015.
Okay, so that 616, that money is encumbered, but we don't have it available.
That is correct. It is committed already to an expense, and the expense has not been completed yet, but that encumbrance is locked in to pay for
You
something.
pay for
Yes.
that once they do the job. But there may be an opportunity that the whole amount encumbered may not be used, I'm assuming.
Well, if it's encumbered already, we would say an expectation in that case that an encumbrance is an account payable. The balance that is in the final column, once you take out the encumbrances, is really what is still available for the project.
The 2,355,000? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Yes,
great. Okay, thank you. I can read it, now I can understand it better.
Mr. Gridley?
Mr. Hirschman?
Yes. I've been saying to council, how many times a memorandum that you guys are requiring audit, if there is really cash available for all the encumbrances, you haven't, I get you throwing the garbage. Do we have enough cash available for the encumbrances? You encumber the money, if you have the money.
Yeah, we have it,
How do you know?
because you have to be in the bank, otherwise.
How do you know?
Either it's in the bank or
If
it's
you,
let me just.
ask for a report,
No,
for
no.
tax the bank worst encumbrances, ask for that
The
report.
encumbered money should either be coming or it should be in the bank.
This is where the discussion that we're having with Zelenkovsky Axelrod, that we're very close to finally being able to talk about publicly, will raise the issue, because there has been an issue that we're showing a negative balance in the capital fund, and it is a legitimate concern. Mr. Hirschman's point is spot on. And we decided a couple of years ago, when that $2 million had come free in some of the projects, that we weren't going to spend it right away, because we weren't sure that we had the cash available to do it. So this is the part that we're resolving, and we're very careful that we don't spend what we don't have.
Okay, so we're not sure if we have it.
That's part of the whole project, getting all the reconciliations done. His point is spot on.
Yeah.
Very good, Mr. Hirschman. Thank you.
Julio, that's one of the papers you threw in the garbage.
What was that?
That's one of the memos you threw in the garbage, you didn't read.
Oh, okay.
I've been promised to be told about the 1.7 million, and I still don't have an answer.
Okay, can you give us an answer on the 1.7?
That's part of, once we get this done reviewing with the auditors, that's part of it. I know what the answer is, but we're not gonna talk about it publicly until we have it all ready to go.
Okay, good. So that's coming, you heard it from the main man there. So once we get any information, we share it.
The trial gave the information.
Well, that's a different issue. That's a different issue.
It was admitted that the city spent it.
Yeah, I don't want to go there.
No.
Any comments?
Hey, we have 15 minutes, can we talk about this a little bit or not?
I thought the meeting was over. I said it again.
The whole thing is off already. You can talk to him individually, yeah.
Well, no, we haven't made this, we're gonna roll out a 5-year plan.
On Thursday, or when?
No, Tuesday.
We're gonna set up a meeting.
No.
It may not be next week, because I won't be here next week.
Not this week, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to give it to you to.
Yeah, well, I'm not here next week, he's not here the following week, but he's coming hopefully next month.
Okay, this isn't my main thing. You know what our main thing is.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah,
What is it?
we're working on
Bank
it.
statements versus the CAD report. The same thing in Philadelphia is making a report. That's where the money, that's where we find out where the money is.
Okay.
That's the only way you're gonna find out.
Only because he raised the issue. Mr. Hunziker has said on numerous occasions that it doesn't matter what's in the CAFR because it doesn't line up with the bank statements, and to the extent that he trusts them. It was only through the CAFR process that Philadelphia discovered that their bank statements were $33 million off. So I guess our CAFR process isn't any good as opposed to theirs if he's not trusting what the numbers are going to be. That's
Well, maybe
That's the
I'm
position that I'm trying to figure out, if our auditors just aren't as good as the ones in Philly. I'm just trying to surmise.
That's an answer that you can give, but you have to understand, we're trying to trust him. He's a professional, we want to trust him, but he has to verify it with the banks. Well, that's what they did in Philly. I don't see the big understanding, say you're gonna go into, I don't trust the CAF report. Somebody's been trusting for 5-10 years.
So you
So
say,
we have to match them up, but when you go get your bank statement personally, it's not what you say is in there, it's what's actually there. That counts.
That's what he said, the capper,
The
Philly
capper
caught
will-
for 3.
That's what, yeah, that's what they are.
And if there were something like that here, the capper would catch it too.
Show us. That's all I'm saying. Show me. I'm not promoting the loan.
Off stage.